Hi, and welcome back to our channel. Happy New Year. I hope everyone had a restful holiday and a good start to 2024. This is a season of rest for us on the homestead, and I say that kind of jokingly because there's always things to be done. I'm always in the kitchen baking. We still do have a garden. It's a winter garden for us, and I'll be sharing some updates on that in a future video. But during these colder months when we are not just 100% outside gardening and canning and stuff like that, I do get the opportunity to work on some more creative things. And this winter, I have caught the furniture redo bug, I guess. I've shared some other pieces that I've done with chalk paint, and this one is a little bit different. This is a TV stand that my mom found, and she wanted me to redo for her. And if you have been watching any of my other videos, you guys will know that my mom's house flooded back in September. And so we are just now getting her moved back in. We got her moved back in, right before Christmas. And so we're decorating, and she's getting kind of all of that stuff pieced back together. And in the flood, her original TV stand was destroyed, and so she wanted a new one. So we shopped and shopped and shopped and finally found one, but it needed some work. And so I'm excited to share that with you guys today. One of the things I love about sharing these little snippets of our lives is to kind of show you guys that homesteading is not 100% all the time. We have our seasons of just hustle and bustle where we have to get things done, but the winter for us really is a season of rest where we are, we're eating through the foods that we canned. We are working on clearing out the freezers so that as we get ready for the spring to kind of restock everything, we're making room for that. And so part of resting for me means I get to kind of let my creative juices flow and do some things. So I'm excited to share this with you guys. Please make sure if you are interested in homesteading or homeschooling or, just kind of anything along those lines, that you definitely subscribe to the channel. And if you love some great before and afters, then this video is definitely for you. All right, so this was the original piece. I believe it was an antique buffet. We found it at a consignment store near where we live, and it smelled a little funky and was a little unstable, but my mom loved the shape on it, and so we decided to bring it home and try to update it. After looking around the back, we decided that the wood underneath would probably be really pretty. So we decided to go ahead and use some stripper and try to take off the stain and the varnish that were just layered on this piece. So after 3 coats of stripper, I was able to get to it with the sander and just continue to take off just layers and layers of coating. And as I did, the wood actually turned out to be really gorgeous, almost like a tiger stripe. So it was just this really cool finish that stood out and contrasted with the rest of the piece being dark. Because I wasn't super familiar with stripping of wood, I decided to really rely on the sander. And here you can see the finished result after a lot of sanding, but it turned out great. And so the next thing was to work on these doors. Unfortunately, the original hardware on the doors had been damaged, so I was able to get that off. And we just loved the shape on the front of those doors and decided that taking the varnish and the color off of that edging and leaving that center panel dark would probably be our best bet as far as what would look good and still give a good contrast. So once I negotiated all of the hardware off of these doors, I got to work on those. Unfortunately, the holes left by the original hardware were going to be a challenge later on, but I think you'll still love the final result. So I went ahead and added the paint stripper to the edges of these doors, just using a brush. The doors were actually so much easier to get all of that stuff off of than the top, which I was really thankful for, because at that point I had used more of the paint stripper than I'd really planned on using. But they came off, I think, just with 2 coats, and then some light sanding. So that was great. And then luckily this drawer was actually pretty well in shape as far as like being structurally sound. It did have some sticky stuff on the inside and just needed a good sanding in some spaces. The wood, I guess, at some point had swollen and had never really kind of gone back down, and you could see where the drawer just kept rubbing and rubbing and rubbing on certain areas. So I decided to go ahead and sand those down, and then ended up just recoating the whole thing in a layer of stain to kind of make it blend back in with the piece. The front had a veneer on it that over the years had just kind of gotten dark, and you couldn't really distinguish it as a pattern or anything, but I also wasn't prepared to try to chip it off. And when I talked to my mom, she said it was fine just to leave it. So I just cleaned everything up and got this ready so it would slide back in the piece more easily for her. So here are the doors after I removed the paint stripper. This was just after me scraping it off. And then after sanding, you can see how pretty they turned out. They match so well. This also had a shelf that was in the middle of it. So we ended up deciding to drop that shelf down a little bit so that it could accommodate her VCR and her DVD player. And then here is the finished piece. I think it turned out beautifully. It's very unique. It's definitely a statement piece. And it was really fun to save something antique and repurpose it in a really different way.